It was a crisp autumn evening when Sarah received the call. She was in the middle of helping her 8-year-old daughter, Lily, with her homework when her phone buzzed. The caller ID read, "Mom." Sarah hesitated for a moment before answering. Her relationship with her parents had always been complicated, but she still held on to the hope that one day they would see her as more than just the difficult child. "Hi, Mom," Sarah said, trying to keep her voice light. "Sarah, honey," her mother's voice was unusually sweet, which immediately put Sarah on edge. "We need to talk about Christmas this year." Sarah's heart skipped a beat. Christmas had always been a tense affair in her family, but she still held on to the tradition, hoping that one year things would be different. "Of course, Mom. What's the plan?" There was a brief pause, and Sarah could feel the tension building. "Well," her mother continued, "this year we're doing things a little differently. It's going to be a smaller gathering, just adults. You know, something more intimate." Sarah frowned. "So, no kids at all?" Another pause. "Well, no, not exactly," her mother said hesitantly. "We just feel like it would be better if you left Lily with a sitter this year." Sarah's grip tightened on the phone. "Just Lily? What about Michael's kids?" Michael was her older brother, the golden child who could do no wrong in their parents' eyes. Her mother sighed. "Michael and Jessica are coming with their kids. But you know how well-behaved they are, Sarah. They're just quieter. More refined. It's easier to have them at the table." Sarah felt a wave of heat flush through her. "They're just children, Mom. Lily is 8. Of course, she has energy, but she's sweet, and she loves you. We're just trying to have a peaceful evening," her mother replied, her tone clipped now. "It's not personal, Sarah. Not personal." Sarah's voice was tight. "You're telling me that my child isn't welcome, but Michael's kids are." "Sarah, don't be dramatic," her mother snapped. "It's just one dinner. You and Tom are still invited, of course." Sarah almost laughed at the absurdity. They wanted her there but not the one person she loved most in this world. "No, Mom. If Lily isn't welcome, then neither am I." There was a long silence, and then her mother exhaled sharply. "Suit yourself," she said, and just like that, she hung up. Sarah stood there, staring at the phone, her breath unsteady. She could hear Lily in the next room, giggling as she played with her dolls, completely oblivious to the fact that her grandparents had just cast her aside like an inconvenience. The next morning, Sarah woke up to a text from her brother, Michael. "Michael, Mom said you're being difficult about Christmas. Why do you always have to make everything so dramatic?" Sarah stared at the screen, her jaw tightening. Of course, her mother had already run to him. "Sarah, oh, so she told you she uninvited Lily but invited your kids?" The typing bubbles appeared, then stopped. A minute passed before he finally responded. "Michael, she just wants a calm dinner, Sarah. You know how Lily can be, a lot." "A lot?" Sarah muttered under her breath. Like Lily was a burden, something to be tolerated, not loved. "Sarah, enjoy your perfect Christmas, Michael. I won't be there." She turned off her phone before he could respond. If they didn't want her or Lily at their table, fine. She wouldn't be part of their world at all. A week before Christmas, Sarah's mother called again. Sarah debated ignoring it but finally answered. "Hello, Sarah," her mother said, her tone cautious. "I just wanted to check in. I know you were upset, but I really hope you'll reconsider. We would love to have you and Tom there." "Not me and Lily," Sarah said, her voice steady. "Just me and Tom." Her mother sighed heavily. "I just don't understand why you're being so stubborn. It's just one night. You know how much Michael's kids mean to us." And there it was, the final painful confirmation that her child, the little girl she loved more than anything, would never be enough for her mother. "You've made it clear where we stand, Mom," Sarah said, her voice cold. "I won't bother you again." "Sarah, don't be like this," her mother pleaded, but Sarah ended the call before she could finish. This time, she didn't cry. She started small. When her father called her that weekend to help him set up his new TV, she let the call go to voicemail. When her mother sent a text asking if she could pick up her prescription, she left it unread. For years, Sarah had been at their beck and call, always available, always reliable. But not anymore. By the time Christmas rolled around, Sarah had missed a total of 12 calls and ignored 6 texts. Then, on the morning of Christmas, she got a message from Michael. "Michael, Mom and Dad are really upset that you're ignoring them. Are you seriously going to let this go this far?" "Sarah, it already went too far when they told me Lily wasn't welcome." This time, he didn't reply. Sarah put her phone on silent and turned her attention to her real family. Lily and Tom were at the table, helping her mix pancake batter. They were covered in flour, laughing hysterically. This was their Christmas, and for the first time in years, Sarah felt completely at peace. But little did she know, her parents weren't done yet. And their next move would be something she'd never forgive. Christmas morning was peaceful in a way Sarah hadn't experienced in years. No rushing to get Lily dressed in her best clothes, no stress over making the perfect side dish, no anxious glances at the clock to make sure they weren't late. Instead, they were in their own little world, their home filled with laughter, the smell of pancakes and maple syrup hanging in the air. Then her phone rang. Sarah glanced at the screen. "Mom." She let it go to voicemail. A minute later, it rang again. And then again. Tom shot her a concerned look. "Want me to turn it off?" Sarah hesitated, then shook her head. "If it's an emergency, I should at least know." She swiped to answer, keeping her voice flat. "What is it, Mom?" "Oh, now you pick up," her mother huffed. "I suppose you're just sitting at home feeling sorry for yourself while we're all here having a lovely dinner." Sarah sighed. "Mom, if you called to gloat, I really don't have time." "That's not why I called," her mother said, her voice turning sharp. "I need to ask you something." Sarah pinched the bridge of her nose. "What now? Did you cancel the credit card?" The room suddenly felt very still. Sarah turned away from Tom and lowered her voice. "What are you talking about?" "Your father's credit card. The one we've been using for groceries, gas, essential things. It was declined this morning." A slow, icy realization crept up Sarah's spine. The credit card her mother was talking about wasn't theirs, it was hers. Years ago, when her father was recovering from surgery and money was tight, Sarah had added them as authorized users on her account temporarily, just to help them through a rough patch. She had meant to remove them when they got back on their feet, but life got busy, and she had forgotten. And they had never reminded her. "You mean my credit card?" Sarah said, her voice shaking. A pause, then her mother scoffed. "Oh, don't be so dramatic, Sarah. It's just a card. You make good money, and we figured." "You figured what?" Sarah's voice was shaking now. "That you just keep using my money? That I wouldn't notice?" "Oh, don't act like this is some big betrayal," her mother snapped. "We raised you. The least you could do is support us now." Sarah inhaled sharply. "Are you serious? After telling me my child wasn't good enough to come to Christmas, you still expected me to keep paying for your groceries? Are you even hearing yourself?" Her mother let out a long, dramatic sigh. "You know what, Sarah? This is exactly why we don't like having difficult conversations with you. You always overreact." "Overreact?" Sarah was done. "You're right about one thing," she said, her voice dangerously calm. "I did cancel the card. And since we're having honest conversations now, let me make something very clear, you won't see another cent from me. Ever. Her mother gasped, as if Sarah had slapped her. Sarah, don't be ridiculous. I'm not, Sarah said, cutting her off. And while we're at it, don't expect Christmas gifts, birthday gifts or anything else either. You made your choice when you told me Lily wasn't welcome. And now I'm making mine. Silence. Then, in a voice colder than Sarah had ever heard from her, her mother said, "You'll regret this." And then she hung up. For a moment, Sarah just stood there, gripping the phone so tightly her fingers ached. Then, slowly, she turned back toward the kitchen. Tom was watching her carefully. "Everything okay?" he asked. Sarah forced a small smile. "Yeah," she said, her voice steadier than she felt. "Just taking out the trash." He didn't ask any more questions. They spent the rest of the day in their own Christmas, watching movies, baking cookies, playing board games. And for the first time in years, there was no underlying stress, no need to walk on eggshells, no pressure to be someone she wasn't. But as peaceful as it was, something told Sarah this wasn't over. And she was right. Because her parents weren't just going to let their golden source of money walk away. And their next move would prove exactly what kind of people they really were. The silence from Sarah's parents didn't last long. 3 days after Christmas, her phone lit up with an incoming call, Michael. She debated ignoring it, but curiosity got the best of her. "What do you want?" she answered, her voice sharp. "What the hell, Sarah?" Michael snapped, skipping any pleasantries. "Mom just called me in tears, saying you cut them off. What is wrong with you?" Sarah closed her eyes, pinching the bridge of her nose. "Did she also tell you that they've been using my credit card for years without my knowledge?" A pause. "Well, she said you were helping them out." "Helping them out?" Sarah let out a humorless laugh. "Michael, they've racked up thousands of dollars on my account without asking, while treating Lily like garbage. But sure, let's act like I'm the bad guy here." Michael sighed, clearly trying to control his frustration. "Look, I get that you're mad, but cutting them off completely, that's extreme." "You mean the way they completely excluded Lily from Christmas?" Sarah shot back. "They just wanted a peaceful evening, Sarah," Michael said, his tone dismissive. "Mom said Lily can be a little wild." Sarah's grip on the phone tightened. "Oh, I see. So they can use my money, but Lily isn't good enough for their table." "Got it." Michael groaned. "You're twisting this." "No, Michael," Sarah said, her voice cold. "I'm finally seeing it for what it is." There was a long pause, and then Michael's voice turned calculating. "Look, maybe we can work something out. What if you just kept helping them, but set limits? Like a smaller monthly transfer. That way, no one has to suffer over a misunderstanding." A cold laugh bubbled up in Sarah's throat. "Let me get this straight. You want me to keep sending them money after they literally told me they love your kids more than mine?" "They didn't mean it like that," Michael grumbled. "They said it, Michael," Sarah said, her voice firm. "They said it." Michael had no response for that. After a moment, his voice turned stiff. "Fine. If you want to be selfish, that's on you. But don't expect Mom and Dad to forgive you anytime soon." Sarah smirked, shaking her head. "I'll survive," she said, and before he could argue, she hung up. For the next few weeks, Sarah's parents played the silent treatment game, no calls, no texts. Sarah figured they were hoping she'd cave, come crawling back, begging for their approval like she always had. But what they didn't realize was that, for the first time in her life, Sarah didn't need it anymore. And just when she thought they'd finally given up, they pulled one last desperate stunt. It was the week before New Year's when the letter arrived. Tom found it in the mailbox, his brow furrowing as he read the sender's name. "It's from your parents," he said, handing it to Sarah. Sarah stiffened. Oh great. Let me guess, guilt, manipulation, or straight-up gaslighting. Tom smirked. Why don't we find out? Sarah took the envelope, her stomach twisting as she tore it open. Inside was a formal legal document. Her breath caught as she read the words. They were demanding reimbursement for years of emotional and financial support. She let out a disbelieving laugh. You've got to be kidding me. Tom took the letter, scanning it quickly. They're saying you owe them for raising you and for all the financial sacrifices they made for your well-being, he said, his jaw tightening. Are they actually trying to bill you for your own childhood? Apparently, they were. They had even included itemized costs, things like food, clothes, school supplies, medical expenses from when Sarah was a child. And at the bottom of the page, a final sum, $78,542. Sarah blinked. They seriously think I'm going to give them nearly 80 grand? Tom scoffed. They must be desperate. Sarah exhaled slowly, anger burning through her. This wasn't about money, this was control. A final desperate attempt to pull her back into their grip. She looked at Tom, her mind already made up. I think it's time I pay them a little visit. The next day, Sarah drove to her parents' house, gripping the letter in her hands. She knocked, and when her mother opened the door, her face immediately hardened. Oh, so now you show up, her mother said, her voice dripping with sarcasm. Sarah didn't rise to the bait. She held up the letter. You seriously thought this would work? Her mother folded her arms. It's what's fair. Sarah let out a sharp laugh. Fair? You want to charge me for being your child while expecting free money from me for the rest of your lives? Her father appeared in the doorway, his expression smug. We sacrificed a lot for you, Sarah. And now you're abandoning us. Sarah stared at them, shaking her head. No, Dad. You abandoned me when you made it clear that Lily wasn't good enough. When you lied and stole from me. When you put a price tag on my worth. Her mother's lips pressed into a thin line. If you don't want to pay, then I guess we'll have to involve lawyers. Sarah met her gaze, unfazed. Go ahead. Her mother blinked. What? Sarah crossed her arms. Take me to court. Try to explain to a judge why you're suing your own daughter for expenses from 20 years ago. See how that goes. Silence. For the first time, her parents looked unsure. Her father cleared his throat. We just thought you'd want to make things right. Sarah laughed. Oh, I am making things right. Right now. She ripped the letter in half, watching their eyes widen. I am done being your personal ATM. Her mother gasped. You ungrateful little. Sarah turned on her heel. Merry Christmas, she called over her shoulder, striding back to her car. And for the first time in her life, Sarah felt lighter as she drove away. She realized something, they weren't upset about the money. They were upset because, for the first time ever, Sarah had all the power. And she wasn't giving it back. Sarah thought that after ripping up their ridiculous demand for money, her parents would finally back off. That maybe, just maybe, they would sit in the wreckage of their own arrogance and realize that they had pushed her too far. But people like them, they don't change. They just escalate. It started small, a text from her mother 2 days before New Year's. Mom, Sarah, this is ridiculous. We're family. You don't turn your back on family over a silly argument. Sarah ignored it. The next day, another message. Mom, we forgive you. Come to New Year's dinner, and we'll forget this ever happened. Sarah almost laughed. They forgive her. Then a few hours later, one from Michael. Michael, they're really hurting, Sarah. Just apologize so we can move on. Sarah rolled her eyes. Of course, in his world, she was the one who had done something wrong. Sarah, funny, They weren't hurting when they were stealing from me or when they told me Lily wasn't welcome. I think they'll survive. She hit send and blocked his number. Then New Year's Eve arrived. Tom and Sarah had just put the finishing touches on the decorations, and Lily was buzzing with excitement, running around in her little party hat, counting down the hours until midnight. It was their night, their celebration. And then the knock. Sarah froze, her stomach twisting. Tom glanced at her. You think? She already knew. She walked to the door, took a deep breath, and opened it. And there they were, Mom, Dad, Michael, and Michael's wife, Jessica. It was an ambush. Sarah crossed her arms. What do you want? Her mother smiled, but it was the same forced, sugary tone she always used when she wanted something. We just want to talk. No thanks, Sarah said flatly. Her father sighed. Sarah, enough. You've made your point. Now let's fix this before things go too far. Sarah narrowed her eyes. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this story. If you did, please hit the like button and share your thoughts in the comments below. I would love to hear what you think. Your feedback really helps me create better content for you. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an update. Thanks again and see you in the next video. Take care.